Hello, welcome back to Unfolding Us. I am Phoenix Jackson. Listen, I have just spent the last hour and a half trying to get my other camera to work. I got a fancy smancy Canon camera that I've had for about a year or so. I was trying to give you guys a different angle, another experience, and it just didn't want to work for me. It just didn't want to work. So guess what I did? I gave up. I said, you know what? They're gonna get what they're gonna get. How they gonna get it? Okay. But welcome back wherever you're listening. If you're listening on YouTube, if you're watching this there, or you're listening on Spotify or Apple or what may have you, thank you so much. I appreciate you for being here. I don't take it lightly that in a very noisy and chaotic world that you have come here to join me in this moment, so that we can just unfold together. Today, I wanted to discuss why consumption is keeping us small and unhealed. So, I tend to believe that there are three phases that a person goes through throughout their life, and it's cyclical and it goes in and out, and everyone goes through these different phases. But the three phases are consumption mode, contemplation mode, and creation mode. I'm literally writing deeper about this in my new book. But when we are in consumption mode, which is where the majority of people are in the world, our brains tend to shrink. And it's not the consumption mode where you think, oh my goodness, I'm consuming and reading and contemplating. No, consumption mode is wrapped in you just literally consuming visual content or consuming audio content or consuming things that are keeping you siloed in a certain way of thinking. Now, there's nothing wrong with consuming things that are feeding your spirit, but a lot of people today is consuming things that are, you know, negative, toxic, dramatic. I think it's why we have manifested the presidency and the situation that we have going on right now, because the reality is we like drama. Humans like drama, humans like a little bit of turmoil. And in America, in particularly, we have created an environment of toxicity from our media to what goes on in the home to what's going on in our politics. We have manifested a reality show in reality. We've manifested a reality show in reality. And we have to come to terms as a collective that this is what we have manifested. But even with that manifestation, with our algorithms, with our social media, what tends to happen is that people get siloed in their consumption. So if you're consuming cats and dogs and babies, you're going to see more cats, dogs, and babies. Nothing wrong with that, right? But whatever you're consuming political content that drives your emotions or creates more anxiety for yourself, or what if you are consuming information and content that may or may not be accurate? It tends to shrink your way of thinking. I say this because I had a situation in a town where a lot of people, a lot of me included, were victims of, the public press. We were victims of a narrative and content that was woven, and I looked at it and I said, something's inaccurate here. And it was a lot of things that were inaccurate for another time. But what I really noticed was that no one questioned this media outlet. No one questioned what they were consuming. No one stopped to say, I wonder why this particular outlet is making a fuss about X, Y, and Z, and if this is even real and accurate. Being in media and communications myself, I would say about 40% of the content that's online is inaccurate, like 40%, right? So we have long removed the ages of going to the library, going into archives, going into old files, looking in actual books, talking to experts in areas. We've long like moved past a lot of that. And people are using like the Shade Room and TMZ as their go-to for their media, which is interesting in itself. And I'm not saying that those places don't have actual journalists on staff, but when you're in an environment where consumption is how they pay their bills, they're going to throw anything at you that they think you will consume, whether it's accurate or not. And with that, we have to question ourselves. Are we consuming things that are actually shrinking our perspective? Are we consuming things that are like slimming our mental capacity? Are we consuming things that's making us a little bit less intelligent every single day? We have to start asking ourselves that. I noticed once, very recently, that I was scrolling through some content. It was some relationship content, and it was like one of those carousels. And once it got to like the fifth slide, something in me was slightly triggered, and I scrolled off. But then I came back to it because I realized, ooh, you don't want to read this because this is something that goes against what you've been consuming and what you perceive to be accurate and true, or this has actually hit a nerve for you and you don't want to hear this because, honey, hit dogs holla. So when I saw that in myself, I was like, oh my God, I need to go back and actually read the rest of this and really listen to my inner voice and read this content that is against what I think or where I've been leaning. And then as I started looking at myself a little bit more and noticing, ooh, when I'm scrolling certain things, it goes against the narrative that I don't want to really listen to, but this narrative is true. I have to slow myself down and I start to question, how am I consuming, and if my consumption is actually feeding me in the way that I need to. And with that, I have an exercise for you all to do. As you all are consuming, as you all are scrolling on your pages, whatever your addiction is, I want you to ask yourself, is the content that I'm scrolling and checking into every day actually feeding me? Do I feel like I'm growing? Am I learning another perspective? Am I actually taking time to see what's going on across the aisle? Am I taking time to see those other people who I think are on the wrong side of history? Am I learning their fears and their whys of who they are and why they're doing what they're doing? I'm asking this because a lot of us are consuming things that are really dividing us. And for us to get to a place together collectively as a human race, we actually have to start listening to each other deeper. And we actually have to mature emotionally to a place where we can learn to understand one another. War is primitive. And if we're consuming things that is saying, yes, we should do this and yes, we should do that, even though those things are not healthy for the world, we have to go inside of ourselves as individuals and actually say, where are we driving our attention and where do we need to starve our attention from? Right? Like, who do we need to take our eyes off of? Because that type of content and that type of consumption doesn't work. So, my homework for you is to check in with yourself when you're consuming, check in with yourself to see, how are you really absorbing the things that are out there. And then I also want you to take it a step further, and I want you to add something to your algorithm that's not there. I want you to go in and say, okay, I want to study something else a little bit differently. So I'm going to go to my algorithm and actually just go ahead and do something a little different. I'm going to start, instead of cats and puppies, okay, I want to actually learn more about like kindness. So I'm going to go and look up kind gestures and what's going on in the world of kindness, some kindness quotes. Start liking and commenting on those things and absorbing a new content. So find one new type of content that you're not looking at right now and start absorbing that. Something that's going to feed you, something that's not going to take away from you. All right? That seems simple enough, right? But it can be uncomfortable. Shift yourself out of the portal that you have been driven into. Start changing your own mind. And the more that you change your own mind, the more that you're going to grow. All right. Thank you so much for being here with me. I appreciate you. I'm making these short and sweet, honey. And I thank you for your time. And know that you become everything you consume. So let's start consuming better content. Let's start pouring into ourselves something better that's going to work better for ourselves and our future self. Thank you so much. And I look forward to seeing you next time. I look forward to seeing you next time.